Yes.
And they thought, this is worth it. This is worth a go.
They've also looked at the fact they probably can't afford Julian Alvarez, who looks as if he might be going to Arsenal now, which I think would be fascinating, actually, to see Alvarez playing for Arsenal. But look, different question. I think...
But shall we talk about that for a moment, actually, Andy, now you mention it? Because Arsenal fans will obviously, if this goes through, be mega excited. You know, speaking to Ray Parlour recently, and Ray was saying, he was asked, what do you think Arsenal need? And before the sentence had even finished, striker. He said, need another striker. Because if you're really going to, you know, fight for the top prizes again, you've got to have that strength and depth at attack. Julian, to me, would be an enormous coup for Arsenal. Because
he would, on paper. Like, look, he is one of the best players in the world on his day. And I have no problem saying that. One of the top 10, I would say. But there's always the question of the physical load with him. And that is a massive problem. Coming back to the Premier League is not a way to fix that for me. Now, look, maybe if Arsenal are stacked enough and they rotate him with Gyökeres, maybe it all works. But I just think, you look at this last season, and, you know, he's massively influential in the Champions League. His ability to positively influence games at the absolute elite level is not even a question. That's not even worth discussing. Can his body stand up to it? I think is the question. That's why Manchester City sold him to Atletico in the first place. Yeah. And you look at Atletico now, they got 7 league goals out of him last season. You know, for a player that we're talking about being worth 150 million euros, maybe more. So I think if Atletico get out of this with a decent profit on what they paid City for him, I think they've done all right, and get some other team to assume the risk. Because like the reward's very high, but I think the risk is very high as well. Whereas it's sort of the inverse of the Adeyemi deal, really, in that you're laying out relatively little. But for me, it feels like the winners of the Adeyemi deal, without anything having happened yet, are Dortmund, because they don't have to pay him a stinking great wage anymore, and they're getting back most of what they paid Salzburg going back a couple of years, and you don't have to put up with all this nonsense off the pitch as well.
Yeah. And just on Alvarez as well, he was quite public about the fact he wanted to leave. He said, it's my dream. My suspicion is he's talking about Barcelona, really. But that...
Well, he is, but it can't happen.
Yeah,
because the
finances
so
aren't there, are they?
Yeah, they're so far away. I think it's quite interesting, and I was saying this to, I think, Adrian Durham earlier in the tournament, like how the way he's handled this, and he's not someone who's like a public loudmouth or anything, but clearly with advice he's taken, it's like you can seize this moment, you can put yourself out there, and he's put himself in a position. I think at the start of the World Cup, Atletico thought, we can hang on to him, we can ride this out. Well, they couldn't. The minute he said that and it went around the world, they couldn't hold him. And I think that's really interesting, because if you go back to, say, Euro 2008, where Cristiano Ronaldo desperately wanted to leave Man United and he desperately wanted to go to Real Madrid, and United managed to keep a lid on that, even though he's the most famous footballer in the world at the time. They managed to keep him for that extra year. Now, if that was now, if Cristiano Ronaldo went in front of a camera and he said during that tournament, look, I don't want to discuss club football, I'm not interested in discussing club football, end of, when people were asking him about it all the time. And if he'd have said, I feel like me and United have gone as far as we want to go, we've just won the Champions League, and now I want to test myself somewhere else. It took me 15 seconds to say that. And if he'd have done that then, like, the world, like, it would have gone mad, wouldn't it, really? And from that point, maybe United would have found it hard to keep him. Not then, but if he'd have done that now, if we imagine Cristiano Ronaldo was that age now, it would have been an impossible situation. I guess it goes to show how much the world of media and transfers has changed, and the influence that the media can have on transfers.
Really intrigued to see what happens with Alvarez. Also really intrigued to see what happens with Jose Mourinho at Real Madrid. We haven't got loads of time left in the section, Andy, but I do want to ask you about this, because there's been talk that Mourinho's had a really positive conversation with Vinicius Junior. I think if that's true, that was very important. That was something he had to do.